The first step to dominating your dynasty fantasy league is to have the right player selection strategy. We'll break down the factors you should consider in player selection in both dynasty startup and rookie drafts. All coming up next. Hello, everyone. I'm Eric Lee.
And I'm Jack Grant, and we're the Fantasy Football Consultants.
Hey, Jack, it is so awesome to be back with you for part 2 of our 3-part series in our FFC Dynasty Fantasy Football Strategy series. Well, today is all about the drafting strategy. How do you approach drafting when you're doing either a startup league or if you've already in an existing league, and we're going to analyze rookies. So you ready to do this, my friend?
That's it. Let's do it.
All right, here's my first question for you. There's got to be a ton of different factors that you are considering deciding who you want to draft, specifically in a dynasty league. What would you say is the most important factor that you are considering?
Talent. Talent is definitely number one.
That's interesting. So let's break this up between veterans and guys that are coming out of rookie class. How would you evaluate talent for veterans in a dynasty format?
Talent-wise, I would just look at last year's stats, and to be honest with you, not much changes from redraft leagues to dynasty as it relates to prior year players that were in the league in the NFL. Yeah.
All right. So I think it's just so much more of a known commodity when you're talking about the veterans. You have a pretty good idea who's good and who's not from a talent perspective, but you don't when they have had no pro experience. How do you figure out the rookie side of it?
Exactly. You hit the nail on the head there. And as it relates to the rookies, I would say recruiting and pedigree, which conference they were in. If they're in the SEC, it's a little bit more of a sure bet. It's like, buying a blue chip stock. You have some faith and there's some transparency of information. So, you're going to have a little bit more certainty with that pick. Of course, the coaching staff is important, which we'll get into a little bit later, but
that's all right. So I get it. If you don't have the talent, they're not going to help your dynasty fantasy football team. So that is an important factor. What would you say is, okay, you got guys that you think have around the same amount of talent. How did you decide there? What would be the second most important factor?
I would say age. Age is super important.
I was wondering when you'd get to age.
Yep, exactly. It's
I'm feeling some age discrimination coming on. So
hey, I'm only a few years younger,
No, tell me about obviously the younger the player, the better. But let's talk about veterans, okay? When you're deciding to draft, how is age considered? And I'm guessing that position matters as well when you're considering age.
Exactly. As we all know, there's different shelf lives for different positions. And, quarterback, clearly a Tom Brady can play into his 40s in a, MVP level. And then you have running backs, which, you'd be lucky to get 8 years, if not 5 years of prime, value before they start getting beat up a little bit. So,
right. So a 30-year-old quarterback is a lot more valuable than a 30-year-old running back, all things being equal in dynasty.
Exactly. So for a dynasty draft, it's going to be important for you, depending on, the first year of the draft. It's going to be very important for you to pick someone that you can build your team around and you see a long future in that. But obviously, like we said, in the talent, portion of the show, you have to be, mindful that they're going to be able to perform and they have those stats to back it.
All right. So we talked about age and we talked about talent. So if you got a superstar young guy, is there something else you should be worried about?
Opportunity. That's definitely number 3 on that list. There's different quarterback situations. I keep talking about the quarterbacks, but it's easy for our viewers to understand how that ties in here. You have the Jordan Loves who are behind, all-star Aaron Rodgers, who's been performing at a high level. You've got Justin Fields, who's coming into the league now, and he's got two guys who will be ahead of him in Nick Foles and Andy Dalton. And then you've got the Trevor Lawrence, which I like to compare to Kyler Murray, who's just going to start right away. So you have to assess where your team is at in the second year of your dynasty league and understand, hey, do I have a guy who's going to be, my all-star quarterback one for a while, and can I stash a guy like Justin Fields on my bench and wait for him? Or do I need someone, I have a guy on the way out and I need a Trevor Lawrence? Those are things to consider.
All right, Jack, we've talked about three factors now: talent, age, and opportunity. I want to give you a scenario where they conflict, where one guy may have the age on his side, but the other may have other factors. Let's suppose you're in a startup draft. So the very first draft in constructing your dynasty league, maybe you're toward the middle or end of your draft. And so you're figuring out, what is your first pick? What's the hallmark of your team? Would you go with a proven veteran like a Derrick Henry, two-time rushing leader? Or would you go who I think is the consensus best rookie running back, Najee Harris?
That's a good question, Eric. And, what I would go into and start analyzing is what data did we have last year? Derrick Henry obviously is a very good player, MVP, like you said, the rushing leader. And then you have Najee Harris, a very talented SEC running back, at the same alma mater of Alabama. I would look at their age. They're, 27 is Derrick Henry, and Najee Harris is 23, I believe. So he has 4 years of youth on his side. But for me, it's hard to get comfortable around just the uncertainty and the risk that comes with picking a rookie. I know that I'm going to have 2 good years probably of Derrick Henry, until, he gets closer to 30. That's usually the kryptonite for them. So for me personally, I think, I could get comfortable around picking Derrick Henry over Najee Harris.
Sounds like you're someone who would be really reticent to pick any rookie in a startup league in the very first round.
Yes, 100%. No matter how talented, they could say it's, the next best, legend of the game. And I don't know if I would go down that road. I like last year's data.
Yeah. And I get that Harris has much probably long-term future, but the certainty that you get for the next 2 years, I get. Folks,
Right,
if you've enjoyed our content, please do us a favor and click that like button. And if you haven't yet, what are you waiting for? Hit the red subscriber button followed by the bell icon. We would really appreciate it. Is there any other factor besides talent, age, and opportunity that you really consider?
I'd say coaching staff. That's probably the next item on the list.
Explain what you mean by that.
Yeah. So by coaching staff, I'm not talking about the organization and the past success. So I'm not talking about Robert Kraft and believing in the Patriot way. It's more of just, the success that some players have had with certain coaches, Sean McVay, Pete Carroll, and then the namesake coaches, and having faith in, the player's success around those guys. So I think that system and the philosophy has a lot to do with it.
Yeah. I mean, coaches have tendencies, right? And they may emphasize the run or emphasize the pass. And depending on whether we're talking about a running back or a quarterback / wide receiver, that could have a very big effect.
Yep.
What's interesting though, in the Dynasty League, you don't know how long the coach will be there though, right? I mean, maybe they're not, especially depending on who the coach is in the organization, they do have turnover. All right, we want to remind you guys that this is all a part of a series, which is, we already did the pros and cons of playing Dynasty. If you missed that video, the link is in the description and we'll include it at the end of the video so you can click on it. What do they have to look forward to, Jack?
We've got the trades and waiver wire, and we're going to be discussing, when to move on from players when their stock diminishes, and also how to trade picks and, stash some draft capital.
All right, Jack, Can't wait for it. But until we see you in the next video, take care, and we'll see you next time.
Take care.